Hello YouTube and my subscribers, thanks for joining me again. Before we get back on that parlor guitar project, the mandolin that you saw in the other video is also being restored by me, and it's needing quite a bit of work on it. The finish has now been completed and that, so we're going to get ready to start putting the things back on it. Anytime that the finish or anything has been stripped off or completely damaged and that, you're going to lose some value, but a good reconstruction or reparation of that finish will retain most of the value. If it's not functional, it's not playable, they're worth nothing. So there's that give and take between what can you do, what should you do, and what shouldn't you do. And along that lines, we're going to look at the tuners for that mandolin. They were brought to me basically, looking like this here. Rough, pretty old shape, still functional for the most part. And these will just take a good cleaning on this particular set of keys. This one, however, which I've already done the restoration to, as you'll notice, is missing this gear right here. It's because this gear was so wiggly and wobbly that it just was not going to function. So that needs to be repaired, and I'm going to show you how you do that. Let's take a look at the gear itself first of all. This is what the gear looks like. This is the way it looks on the plate when it's together. And this is the way it's taken apart, and you'll see there's a hole right here where there's a steel pin that's been pressed through there. But this one has obviously been taken apart and repaired as someone has drilled it out to try and tighten it back up. So we're going to fix that. And the manner we're going to fix that is we're going to solder this little hole shut. And then we're going to put it back in where it belongs on the mandolin. Return the tuner top on there, position a new hole in through the existing opening there, and put a new pin into that, and that'll tighten this up and make it functional again. Now, you might ask, why am I soldering it and not brazing it? Because it's bronze. It's because the diameter of this little pin is about the thickness of a heavy brazing rod, and when you heat this up, you'll warp it or distort it or even start to melt it a little bit, so solder is a better option. And the solder is not really going to slide out of that hole because you're going to drill it, and it's just being used like a wedge essentially. So let's turn around here and we'll get going on that. While that soldering iron is getting up to temp, let's talk about a couple of things I have off camera. Got a rag like this here. It's got cold water on it. We're going to use that to clean the soldering iron, because they're usually a little dirty looking from your last use. So I'm going to use some hot water, get that tip cleaned back up again, and drop a little solder on there. And you're going to wipe that off as well. It's going to put it onto the tip. Now you're ready to solder. So you're going to heat up your pin here, because you do want it to have adhesion to the solder. And I'm using just simple silver solder, smaller diameter so it heats up quicker, be able to fill that hole a little faster. I'm just going to feed that into the hole. And just that fast, there you are. That hole is now filled up with solder. Now you want to hold it with a vice grip or something else, because this thing's going to get hot. You don't want to grab it with your fingers. Just take a look at the other side. There he is, filled solid. But we do want to put a little bit on this side as well, just to make sure that you have that all the way through. Don't worry about that extra you see on there, because we're going to sand that off to make sure you follow the shape of that tuning gear and clean off your solder iron again. Okay, this stuff doesn't take very long to cool down. Just going to grab her, wrap her around there. You don't want to use like 80 grit or something like that because you're going to change the diameter of this post here and it's going to get sloppy in there no matter what you do with it. So you're just basically trying to take off that extra solder that's on there. So it might take you a little bit. It takes a little bit, it takes a little bit. That's the thing about doing these repairs, reconstructions. You got to take time on everything. I know I stress that a lot on all the videos that I do, but you really do need to take the time. Patience is something you really need to learn when you're working on these old instruments. Okay, once you've completed sanding it, you want to try it on your collet, make sure it fits right. Seems to be fitting in there pretty decently. So you're going to want to put that back through the plate so we know where to mark that new location. And you're going to want to go through that same existing hole. You don't want to turn it sideways and drill through the brass again because you stand a really strong chance of catching a hole on both sides and this end breaking off when you try to put the pin back in, so then it'll be shot. So you want to set her on there just like that. It's nice in there. Once you're there, get your marker out, mark your hole location. And there's our hole location. So we're going to drill that hole out with a bit that's 83 thousandths thick because the original wire itself was 93 thousandths thick. And something else I should bring up while I'm here, it's nice to have a caliper. They really are useful for this sort of thing to measure exact. You can't really eyeball this stuff. You really need this to help you get exact measurements. So, and what are we going to use for a pin? This right here. This is a finish nail. It happens to be 93 thousandths thick, the depth and the thickness of the original wire. So what I've gone is sanded the point off so it's not wider at the beginning than it is at the end to go through the hole. We're going to put that through the hole then, cut off both ends, and then we will pin that round to match the pins that are in here. So it'll be just like this set here. So I'm going to step away off camera for a minute here. I'm going to drill this hole out. Alright, when I say step away to drill out the hole, I use a drill press for this stuff to make sure that the hole goes through straight. You can drill it out by hand, but it's just, I think it's more trustworthy to use a drill press because it'll go through straight. It will not go through on an angle. So now we see I've got the finish nail in the hole, which is tight. We're just going to take our little hammer here and go ahead and bang that through. There it is. Now this is nice and snug again. So we're going to cut these barbs off and then pin the ends over. You're just going to take and cut these off. It's if you go along with it on this side here, it gets you a little closer to the brass. Now that's there, so you want to turn it so that it sits up on the top like this. So then you're going to be carefully peeing this over. Like I said, that nail is soft enough where you can peen it, but hard enough to make a permanent pin. As you can see, it shaped itself, fit that hole. So we want to turn the tuner around and do the other side. And now your tuner is repaired. A quick look at those restored tuners, tops and bottoms. Turned out real nice. The ivory's got the little yellow to it because of its age. I would recommend leaving that on there versus polishing it back to white. Here you can get a good look at those pins and how they go through those spline gears. If you are planning to play these old instruments a lot, I would look at a relic finished or a reconstructed golden age tuner versus putting these back on and using these to play on a constant basis, due to the fact that these older tuners really have a little issue holding tune, and that, so you'd be constantly tuning this if you plan on playing it a lot. If you're only going to pull it off the shelf once or twice a year, tune it up and strum a few licks on it because you're a collector, you can put these right back on there. This is Ralph Grammel from A Customs Handcrafted Guitars, and I'd like to thank you for watching this short video on reconstruction and repair of these old machine tuners. And if you like what we do here, hit that subscribe button down below there, and we'll shoot you out as much video as we can. Thanks again.